Hi guys, today I'm going to talk about Howl's Moving Castle. So, what happens when we see a very visually attractive film? This film is absolutely the right pick for a completely emotionally soothing experience, beginning with its initial visuals and slow, dreamy music as its title appears on the screen. This film is a beautiful mix of sci fi, fantasy, and realism. Howl's Moving Castle was released on the 20th of November 2004. It's a 1 hour 59-minute long 2D animation film. The director of this film, Hayao Miyazaki, is a Japanese animator, manga artist, filmmaker, and he's now 83 years old. Studio Ghibli is famous for from a romanticized representation of everyday life. Or some other popular animation films by Studio Ghibli, which I have also watched and very much enjoyed, include Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, Howl's Moving Castle, of course, this film itself, The Boy and the Heron, and From Upon Poppy Hill, and so many more. I watched this film on Netflix. Its Netflix description says Sophie works in her late father's hat shop in a humdrum town, but things go interesting when she's transformed into an elderly woman. So this happens with her. There's some kind of magic that happens. So in this film, more than half of the drama has already happened when the film is just half over. I feel that Sophie's ability to stay kind in spite of all the negativity inflicted at her gives a very soothing touch to the story. And Sophie's courage, her quality to own up responsibility in difficult circumstances in the story are really the two things that actually help Sophie, Howl, as well as the other characters maneuver through the meandering adversities and calamities and difficult situations. So, even though this is an animation film, yet the scene development has been very well thought of, just like a cinematic live action film. The very mysterious and intriguing Howl's Moving Castle appears slowly moving through the fog across the hill. The minutest details have been paid attention to make the surroundings look very realistic, just like the shape. Moving slowly on the hill, appearing slowly through the fog, like tiny specks of cotton balls. There are birds flying in the distance as the giant cottony clouds float in the sky. And then the camera tilts down to an approaching steam engine that lets out black smoke. The details depict how the mundane world and life in civilized areas continue to go on. Even the garbage under the bridge has been drawn. The character of the city has arisen with the carefully painted stones of the cobblestone road on which Sophie and Howl are walking. Usually, everyone thinks that maybe in an animation film, very minute details are not paid attention to as much as they are already built up in a live action film because those things happen as the actors act, like the sounds and the movements and the body language. But for an animation film, this has to be created by the animator consciously in such a subtle way that it doesn't become very obvious to the eye of the audience. There's a scene in which, in the silence, only the sound of Sophie's footsteps and only the sound of the fire gently crackling can be heard as Sophie speaks to herself. So, this is one such moment in the film. So, in this scene where the weather is cold, and the difference between the cozy warmth inside Howl's castle and the cold wind outside can be distinctly felt. So, there's a scene where Sophie is sitting at the shore of the river, and the water in the river is clear and translucent as it slowly flows towards Sophie's feet as she's sitting there on a chair, and it feels like the water is real water. The water painted backdrops of each scene, the lush green dense trees, and the old bricks in Howl's vintage house on the ground, and the night blue sky painted in water paint is the most artistically attractive and yet a very realistic looking background visual of the city. Even though the characters are most obviously stylized cartoon characters and they have been drawn and colored in the typical Ghibli animation style of drawing, these characters are still acceptable to the audience as real people. So, this is one of those classic 2D animation masterpieces where the movement of each and every character and object is smooth and supple. And a sufficient number of keyframes have been drawn, as well as the body language of each character is very unique and believable. I really like how there's drama in the movement of old Granny Sophie as she's cleaning Howl's castle. For example, when old Granny Sophie moves her arms to brush off the ashes from Calcifer's fireplace, her back also moves very realistically, just like it would for a real actor, even though she's animated. The Witch of the Waste is quite intimidating, even to the audience watching the film, and not just to Sophie. And that's the magic of this film, that every element feels like what it really is like in real life. Animation is an artistic stylization of this film. Some people might even make the mistake of categorizing it as a film only meant for children or teenagers or anime lovers, whatever their ages. But I feel it's actually much more than that. It is poetic, it is philosophical, and rich in metaphor. Howl's transformation with time is a metaphor for emotional drain that often goes unnoticed in real life. And that's what the true power of a good film is. And so the line between live action and animation slowly blurs into just experiencing a good film, experiencing a gamut of emotions. So, thank you so much for watching. See you until the next one.